Greetings and welcome to my dear Taurians out there. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. Tarot of the Twin Sun is a functional division within the Order of the Twin Sun. Please take only what you will. So we shall be doing a reading for the energy of Taurus. The second house is open. This is for the month of November 2022. And this is a particular reading that is taken on the 1st of November 2022 at 8:40 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So, to firstly begin, there is an interesting opposition that encompasses the ascendant of Taurus, okay, with Uranus in retrograde conjunct the North Node in Taurus, okay. That begins with essentially the house of the self, the sense of self, okay, your self-expression that has a desire to find stability, okay, to find stability within disorders, okay. So that means there's a tendency here to look within and to find a sense of good health, for example, and self-representation through good health to balance out the body as well as the relationship between the physical body and the etheric body, okay. And there's a strong desire to do this, okay. The difficulty is that there's an opposition to this as well as a square that aspects the 11th and the 7th houses for you in particular, okay? That means that your self-image, which is indicated through the first house, is coming up to square with the collective image in general, okay? So there's a need to look to things that are collective in nature, okay, that has to do with attitudes, thoughts, as well as behaviors on a collective level in terms of societies that are out there, in terms of humanity in general, okay. This also forces you to look within to see how your own philosophies or your own dreams are supportive of your own self-image, okay? And it seems to me that there is a need to find stability in things that are new, in things that are different or unconventional or eccentric in some sort of way. So self-representation, self-expression become one of the key motifs that are being activated through the square. And furthermore, people that you attract, people that you bring in, soul energies that you bring in are heavily aspected here on the opposite of your own self, the house of the first, through the 7th house. And there's a stellium here in your 7th house with your ruler, Venus, in Scorpio, along with a conjunction of Sun, Mercury, and the South Node. Highly aspecting, essentially, and in opposition, Uranus in retrograde and the North Node on your ascendant, okay? So what does this do? Well, it negotiates between the axis of Taurus and Scorpio, which has to do with transformation, null change of anything that is resistant to change, okay? Going through those changes, when it comes to meeting others, these people become influential in a way that they represent some form of karma, some sort of sharedness, okay, that will activate essentially the 6th and 7th house for you and the descendant, those cusps in general. And this has to do with blocks in terms of relationships, blocks in terms of the workplace, work colleagues getting in your way, as well as if there's anything spiritual or in-depth that you need to transform and alchemize your own life. These people will become agents to that, okay? So if you're in a relationship or if you have someone who deeply impacts you in some way, shape, or form, there is an ability for them to essentially give you that sense of change, okay? And there's something karmic to it with the South Node being there. Now, the interesting thing is that the people that you bring in with this sun energy here, it combusts all the planets. It saturates them in sunlight. So these planets become imbued with light, including the South Node and Mercury. So in a way, there is a type of ego death, okay, or some sort of solar alignment, solar attunement that these people will have to do with the energy of the sun in the 8th house, or the sun in Scorpio, okay? Meaning that there is a shadow element, a shadow play that they have that will actually create oppositions with your own stability, your own desire to have stability, to have a self-image, okay? So it's not the easiest of months, and this is quite a difficult position, in my opinion. What furthermore accentuates this difficulty is this square between the 12th house with Jupiter in retrograde and Neptune in retrograde, creating a square with Mars in retrograde in the 2nd house. So ultimately, we have 6 planets that are in retrograde, including 2 minor planets, which is the North Node, the ecliptic of the Moon, as well as Chiron, okay? So all of this, essentially, it creates a sort of latent slap back effect, okay, a feedback loop, if you will, that has to do with your own stability, your own ability to make resources, placing your actions in the right hats in order to make things work. The thing is that there are mystical dimensions in the 12th house that are providing you with deep insights, potentially, that will help you with transforming a sense of career on your MC, okay? That's Pluto on the MC in Capricorn. So if you are sensing that you need to make some form of stability, there is a need to confront innovation from the 10th to the 11th houses, to look towards communities and cultures and institutions that need reform in some sort of way. Even global economies, the way you value or handle money, reforming all of that, and essentially it will give you insight to look and cut through the veil of Pisces in the 12th house, with Neptune and Jupiter in retrograde there. Once you can do this, there's a possibility that your actions will fruit and bear some sort of harvest. When it comes to your own resources, I sense that there could be a block in terms of that. But look towards your work, transforming a sense of your career, your sense of self-image through what others perceive you as you project yourself out into the world, and you may actually find benefit in all of that. Now let's move into the 9-card spread known as the Great Mirror. And the Great Mirror is simply a tool devised by the Order of the Twin Sun in order to see particular karmas or energetic sort of resonances that may exist between you and a specific other. Let's see here. We're going to have to do 7 shuffles here. So let's go ahead and start. Okay. So this is your side here. This is their side, whomever they are. They can be significant or insignificant, as you will. You're dealing with someone here who activates primarily your 4th and 5th houses. So it could be someone who is younger than you, is potentially, they've got that Leo energy, okay, which has to do with their own shadow play, trying to understand and balance out through their own work, a way to bring forward the strength to essentially come up with a strong position in life, okay? You are reflected with the Hierophant's energy, and all the major arcana are pointing to essentially and culminating towards the Chariot's energy, okay? So it's the 2nd house, the 5th house, and the 4th house, okay? The Hierophant actually represents Taurus's energy. This has to do with the sublimation of the axis of the 2nd and the 8th houses, noting that we are bound by the karmically shared inheritance of our others, okay? And we are actually in a vow or a binding agreement with all of that. And that's the mystery of the fixed axis of earth and water. So what this means is that there is a sublimation through the death of civilization, through the death of of certain things that are materialistic in nature, okay? And as we sacrifice that, some sort of deep spiritual attunement occurs, and that's the mystery of the Hierophant. So you are devoted to something of a higher cause when it comes to this situation. There is an activation of the fourth house, which allows for the great potential of liberation, okay? Allowing for two different people from different backgrounds to essentially be of part of the same path and potential to liberation, to spiritual attunement, okay? And what I'm seeing here as far as the major arcana goes on a conscious level, there is some shadow play that needs to be worked out. There also is a need to essentially transform the energy of the material, okay, commitments, vows, and all of that, and to convert that into the spiritual plane, as above, so below. And that's what the Hierophant is pointing to, as above here. So, let's see here. On a soul level, there's an interesting interplay here. You're dealing with someone who's extremely rigid and fixed in their way. There is some trepidation or apprehension towards what they are manifesting in terms of this connection. The Nine of Swords emerges, okay? The interesting thing is that they will meet you with the Ten of Swords, or they will impart a sort of psychological block, a sort of barrier. As are you. There's a type of barrier motivation that is occurring on the subconscious realm that has to do with essentially the Nine of Cups on your end, trying to essentially refrain and also be content with your own projects, your own ambitions when it comes to the spiritual path, or perhaps the creative path. There's a lot that has to do with essentially the promise that you're making to a higher order in order to produce an effect, okay? The thing is that on the soul level, there's a lot of psychological aspects to this that has to do with the Five and the Seven of Swords, distancing, and a sequence of events that have to do with essentially understanding your own pains of being impartial on leaving in one way to be impartial towards a situation, and then also sort of dealing with realities outside that are impartial. There is the sort of what I would call the duplicity of Aquarian energy, where there could be two faces or two ways of thinking, two ways of operating. And often the sword sequence is often dealing with two sides of the same coin, okay? Two subjective truths that actually unify and saturate and become an objective coin, okay? Objective sort of truth, if you will. The thing is that because all of this is operating on the soul level, there is something psychosomatic, or there is something psychological that has to do with essentially the departure or the flightiness of air, okay? And this is most significantly embodied through Aquarius energy. And because Aquarius is aspecting your 11th house right now, I mean, there's a conjunction of Saturn and Moon here. There's a lot of dryness in terms of your perception of humanity. Something about them being starved or thirsty, or there certainly is a dry sort of coldness to the way you perceive, especially with Saturn conjunct the Moon in your 11th house, the way you sort of deal with humans in general. So I think the takeaway here is, if you're dealing with someone who is dealing with their shadow, let them deal with their shadow on their own. There is a conservative or a reserved energy here that is difficult to penetrate. The idea here is to let them do the work, and then realize that their own actions, or thoughts rather, the thoughts that move them are actually motivated by something that comes out of numbness, or that comes out of some sort of psychological block in some sort of way. And this is because of the rigidity and the fixity of what the mirror is showing me, the fixity of of them. But the irony is that there is a fixity in both of you. There's a resistance to move, a resistance to change, and there is this general flightiness, great potential in this type of connection. That's the best I can do. I do wish you well. Thank you. Bye-bye.